Beyond money, why Black entrepreneurs need faces, not just funding. Thank you all for being here today. I am truly honored to stand before you to share some transformative insights I've gathered from my recent conversation with Charlie French, a visionary leader whose work has fundamentally reshaped how we understand entrepreneurship in America. Charlie isn't just a researcher or advocate, she's a revolutionary thinker who has dedicated her life to illuminating the invisible barriers facing Black entrepreneurs, particularly women. Her work doesn't just document problems, it reimagines possibilities and creates pathways where none existed before. The conventional wisdom about entrepreneurship in America is seductively simple, isn't it? Have an idea, work hard, build something, achieve independence. The quintessential American dream distilled into four straightforward steps. But what if I told you we've been focusing on the wrong part of the equation all along? When we talk about Black entrepreneurship in America, the conversation inevitably gravitates toward funding. If only they had more access to capital, we say. If only loans were more accessible. These statements aren't wrong, but they're dangerously incomplete in a way that fundamentally misunderstands the deeper challenge. Through Charlie French's groundbreaking research and the powerful stories she's collected, I've come to understand something that should shake our foundations. For many Black entrepreneurs, especially women, the most formidable barrier isn't actually the absence of capital, it's the absence of something far more fundamental: representation, mentorship, and visible pathways forward. Think about that for a moment. When you can't see anyone who looks like you succeeding in the path you want to take, that absence creates a vacuum of possibility. It's not just discouraging, it fundamentally alters what you believe is achievable. Let me introduce you to Tyra Selden, whose story Charlie shared with me. Tyra was an accomplished academic who decided to transition into freelance writing. She had the education, the skills, the determination, all the ingredients we typically associate with entrepreneurial success. But when she looked around at the freelance writing landscape, she noticed something troubling: an almost complete absence of Black freelancers in her network. This wasn't just a matter of feeling isolated, though that was certainly part of it. The absence of visible role models meant she had no blueprint to follow, no one to turn to who understood both the professional challenges of freelancing and the unique barriers she faced as a Black woman in that space. She worried about income stability, yes, but equally concerning was the skepticism from her own community about whether freelancing was even a viable path for someone like her. Every step felt like stepping into darkness. Tyra told Charlie, not because I didn't have skills, but because I couldn't see anyone who had successfully made the journey before me. It was like trying to cross a river without knowing how deep it was or where the currents might pull me. What's remarkable about Tyra's story isn't just that she overcame these challenges, but how she did it. Rather than focusing exclusively on building her client base or perfecting her craft, the traditional entrepreneurial priorities, she recognized that creating community was equally essential to her success. She actively built connections online with other freelancers of color. She shared her journey publicly through blogs and social media. And despite her own time constraints as a new entrepreneur, she offered informal mentorship to others. The result? Her transparency attracted aspiring writers seeking guidance. She became known as the resident successful freelancer among her peers. And perhaps most importantly, she helped normalize freelance careers for Black professionals by increasing visibility and highlighting how crucial peer support truly is. The moment I realized my visibility was as valuable as my services, Tyra explained, everything shifted. I wasn't just building a business, I was building a bridge for others to follow. This pattern, where the absence of representation creates barriers that go far beyond financial constraints, isn't isolated to freelancing. It permeates every sector of entrepreneurship. Charlie French's research revealed another critical example: examining systemic barriers in startup financing. A multi year analysis using the Kaufman Firm survey compared outcomes for Black owned startups versus white owned startups across the United States. The findings were sobering, but not surprising. Persistent disparities in access to credit and capital, especially external debt. Black founders typically started with lower wealth levels and reported negative perceptions regarding bank treatment, even when they were creditworthy by objective standards. But here's what's particularly telling about this research: many of these founders entered entrepreneurship after facing roadblocks in traditional employment. They turned to entrepreneurship as an escape from systemic barriers, only to discover that those same structural inequities followed them into business ownership. Despite showing remarkable innovation and resourcefulness, most Black owned firms remain smaller over time due largely to these persistent financing gaps, not because of any lack of ambition or talent. This research sparked important conversations around equitable access and underscored why new entrepreneurs must plan proactively around expected hurdles. Now, you might be thinking, but isn't this still ultimately about money? Isn't access to capital still the fundamental issue? That's where Charlie French's insights become truly revolutionary. Because while financial barriers are real and significant, focusing exclusively on them misses something crucial: the psychological and social dimensions of entrepreneurship. Consider this third powerful example Charlie shared with me about financial literacy initiatives fueling entrepreneurship. Community led programs aimed at improving financial literacy have empowered many aspiring Black entrepreneurs nationwide. Historical underinvestment had led to widespread gaps in knowledge around budgeting and business finance, making it harder for new businesses to survive early setbacks. The solution wasn't simply to provide capital, it was to create culturally relevant financial education, including topics like personal credit repair before seeking small business loans. Participants reported increased confidence navigating startup finances, and many went on to launch businesses that weathered initial volatility, thanks largely to improved planning skills. What's particularly striking about these programs is that many participants were first time founders motivated by both necessity and opportunity. Initially, they felt overwhelmed by complex requirements until they received targeted support and training from people who understood their specific challenges. Before this program, I thought entrepreneurship was for other people, not people from my neighborhood, not people who look like me, one participant told Charlie. But seeing someone who shared my background break down these financial concepts made me believe I could do this too. It wasn't just about the money, it was about believing I belonged in that world. The graduates of these programs opened retail shops and service businesses that employed locals, increasing neighborhood wealth circulation. These efforts seeded stronger entrepreneurial ecosystems across several cities, with ripple effects including job creation and economic mobility. This is where we begin to see the true nature of the challenge and the solution. The most effective interventions weren't just about providing money, they were about creating community, visibility, and shared knowledge. So, what does this mean for how we think about entrepreneurship, opportunity, and success? First, it means we need to fundamentally reframe our understanding of what constitutes a barrier. When we focus exclusively on financial capital, we miss the equally crucial forms of social and cultural capital that enable success. Building a successful business requires more than ambition. It demands intentional networking with mentors who understand your unique challenges as a Black entrepreneur. Second, it means recognizing that systemic barriers remain deeply entrenched, not only in corporate America, but also within freelance and entrepreneurial spaces. Recognizing these obstacles early enables better preparation and resilient strategies. And third, it means understanding that financial literacy isn't just about managing money, it's an essential tool for breaking generational cycles of economic exclusion while fostering sustainable entrepreneurship in our communities. But perhaps most importantly, Charlie French's research points to something profound about human potential and how it's activated. We often think of entrepreneurship as an individual journey, the lone visionary building something from nothing. But the reality is far more interconnected. Our ability to envision possibilities for ourselves is inextricably linked to what we see as possible for people like us. This isn't just true for entrepreneurship, it applies to virtually every domain of human achievement. When NASA saw a surge in women applying to be astronauts in the late 1970s, it wasn't because women suddenly became more qualified or because formal barriers had been completely dismantled. It was because they could see people like Sally Ride making it possible. When a record number of Black students applied to medical schools following the visibility of Black doctors during the COVID pandemic. It wasn't because opportunities suddenly materialized, it was because representation made those existing opportunities visible in a new way. The power of seeing someone like you succeed isn't just inspirational, it's transformational. It converts the theoretical possibility of someone could do this to the concrete reality of someone like me has done this, so I can too. So, where do we go from here? What does this mean for you? Whether you're an entrepreneur, an investor, a mentor, or simply someone who cares about creating a more equitable world. I challenge you today to recognize that representation isn't just a nice to have, it's essential infrastructure for opportunity. It's as fundamental as capital, as critical as market access. And unlike many systemic barriers, it's something each of us has the power to influence. If you've achieved success in your field, make yourself visible. Share not just your triumphs, but your struggles, your doubts, your missteps. The messy middle of your journey may be exactly what someone else needs to see to believe their own path is possible. If you're in a position to mentor, recognize that your guidance isn't just helping one individual, it's potentially unlocking possibilities for an entire community that sees themselves in that person's journey. And if you're an aspiring entrepreneur facing the daunting absence of visible pathways, remember Tyra's story. Sometimes the most revolutionary act is to build the community you needed but couldn't find. Your visibility becomes someone else's possibility. The future of entrepreneurship, indeed, the future of opportunity itself, depends not just on redistributing capital, but on reimagining who we see as capable, as worthy as possible. When we make success visible across all communities, we don't just change individual trajectories, we transform collective possibilities. The bridge to opportunity isn't just built with dollars, it's built with stories, with visibility, with representation that says this path is for you too. And each of us has the power to be both architect and building material for that bridge. Thank you.